Hello JRPG fans! On the agenda today we have the top 10 hidden gem JRPGs on the Nintendo Switch so far. They have been presented in no particular order as they're all just worth a look. And obviously this is my opinion. I welcome you sharing what you consider a hidden gem in the comments below. So let's get on with it. Number 1. Up first we have Briodine, The Legend of Runizia. This is a tactical role-playing game that uses hexes instead of the normal square grid. It's a sequel to the old game Briodine, The Legend of Forsenna, keeping much of the same core concepts with just some updates. You take the role of one of 6 nations in the lands of Runizia to begin your conquest of unification. Each nation has a different reason for wanting to do what they want, and they're all quite different, so you get that choice. You can look at the 6 different nations and choose the one that you feel is most like you, and it also comes with quite a decent political story around it, very much reminiscent of other games of this type of genre. This choice of 6 nations gives a lot of potential for replay because you can get to try all the different nations. The game itself hasn't actually changed that much from the old style. So if you played things like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy Tactics, etc., you'll kind of have a good grasp of what's going on gameplay wise, except for it being on hexes, as I've already said. And it has an interesting monster summoning mechanic as well, which sets it apart from the others. So what I'd recommend is, if you're looking for something different than, say, Fire Emblem Three Houses, then give this a go. Number 2. Coda Princess EX. Well, with this game, let's get the obvious out of the way. Yes, some of the characters are a little underdressed, shall we say. But, underneath this skimpy bit of clothing is a fun little side-scrolling action RPG that actually requires you to have a bit of finesse. It's not just a straight-up button masher as some of them are. That will get you so far, but you need to actually learn how to play the game a bit, and actually how to use the combos and your timings to get the most out of this game. What's good about it is, say Odin's Sphere as such, you get a number of characters and they have massively varying playstyles. I know if you're watching the gameplay footage up at the moment, it looks straight up like a side-scrolling hack and slash, which it kind of is, but there is a big leveling mechanic to it, so it is an RPG as well. It's one of those kind of it's an RPG, but yeah, we won't get into that. That's a whole topic for another day. But yeah, overall, it's a fun little blast, and I recommend it for fans of people like Odin's Sphere and stuff like that. You'll probably get quite a lot out of it. Number 3. Next up, we have Nexamon Extinction, the so-called Pokemon clone. And well, it pretty much is. If you play Pokemon, you know what you're getting. It's a monster hunting game in the exact same vein. The big difference, though, is this game is actually quite a bit harder. The game's for this type of game, it's pretty brutal, and also the plot of the game as well is a darker overall plot, because the world is in an extinction phase, and the point is to try and figure out what's going on and see if you can stop it. So much like a Pokemon game, you're setting out on a journey as a young kid. You've got to catch and raise Nexamon, evolve them, etc., and figure out what's going on in the world and maybe save it. What I'd say for this is, if you're a little bit disgruntled with the new Pokemons, or even if you're, say, like a Digimon Cyber Sleuth fan, something like that, this will probably appeal to you. Overall, it plays well, it looks alright, the designs of the Nexamon are okay, and yeah, I feel like it's been overlooked a bit because of the fact people just see it as a Pokemon clone. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Number 4. Up next, we have Alliance Alive HD Remaster. It's a remake of the 3DS game that came out not too long ago. This game has some quite big hitters behind it, actually. People involved in the Suikoden games, people involved in the Final Fantasy games. So it has quite a good pedigree. And it's I'd say, traditional-ish turn-based JRPG. The story revolves around a world that's been controlled by demons and their underlings, the beast folk. You play as some humans that are in a resistance that basically are desiring to set the races free from the said demons and such. It has a good mix of serious and light-hearted moments, dealing with some quite heavy topics, such as like racism and even suicide. As I said, the gameplay is very reminiscent of old school like JRPGs, but with like the Saga style of leveling, so where you get like the random stat boosts as opposed to leveling. So if you do certain actions, it might cause you to gain more attack, etc. There's obviously a lot more involved in it as well. The art style is the 3DS, the chibi style look a lot of 3DS JRPGs had, but it's done with a modern update. It looks quite good for the style it is. I'm not the biggest fan personally, but it was good enough to make me enjoy the game. So I think overall they've done a decent job. So if you're looking for that turn-based itch, then I'd go for this. Number 5. Next up we have Maryskelter Tavern Story, a Kemco game. If you're aware of Kemco, they are known for putting out a lot of JRPGs of a more simplistic style. Not to put them down, but they've never been AAA JRPG makers, and they have a lot of games behind them because of this. So this is one of the many titles they've released on the Switch, and this one's actually a little bit different to normal. It's kind of similar in feel to the Atelier games, if you ever played them. So what it is you play this young girl who's been possessed by the god of poverty. They've lost everything, so she starts out opening a tavern to make a living. And so you've got this mix of kind of a cooking mechanic, which is similar to the alchemy in the Atelier games, and then going out into the dungeons and doing your dungeon crawling to gather the ingredients to make better food. So it's a very kind of simplistic game, and the story is okay, but you get to make some shiny dishes. You get to get that Atelier feel without it being an Atelier game, and for the cheaper price of a Kemco game, and you get a somewhat traditional turn-based battle system. I mean, if you're looking for something just to pass the time, then have a crack at this one. Number 6. Next up we have Meryskelter 2. This is a first-person dungeon crawler style JRPG, so in the veins of things like the old wizardry games and such. This isn't the most welcoming game. The whole genre can be considered to be quite difficult. There is one we're going to talk about later that is a little bit more welcoming for newer players, but for someone who's experienced in the first-person dungeon crawler, this is a game they'll feel right at home playing. The story is actually quite dark. It's set in this jail. It's like a living prison, which humanity's kind of found itself stuck in, and it's just the people are just going through constant torture, and there's these really creepy looking like creatures that go around called like the Marchin, and basically humanity's just trying to find a way to survive, and they've found an interesting way, and you'll have to play the game to see how it goes. There are some really interesting enemy designs in this. Like I said, they're quite creepy, and the world itself is really weird. It's weird and unique, and it's got this kind of Alice in Wonderland bit of theme to it. But yeah, if you're into the dungeon crawler style games, this is a solid entry. I'd give it a go. Number 7. Next up we have Fairy Tail. Based on the anime and the manga of the same name, it's actually a surprisingly welcoming game for new people to the franchise. Even though it's set quite far in, you kind of might be a bit lost at the start, but you tend to just gloss over it and get on with the show, which just sounds a bit strange, but don't be scared off just because in an already established franchise, otherwise you're missing out on potentially quite a good game. The gameplay in this one is turn-based, which is quite unique for like anime-inspired games, because a lot of them tend to be actiony. Just look at a lot of the Naruto games and the Dragon Ball games, they're all like fighters and such, whereas this is actually a turn-based battle system, and quite a good one at that. You can like your enemies are on like a 3x3 grid, and you have like all your attacks, special attacks have like different ranges, so they might be like a T shape, they might hit each corner, etc, etc. It's quite good and enjoyable, and I think overall the game does quite a good job of capturing the spirit of the anime, with its visuals and such. So for fans of the series and for people just getting into it, I'd recommend it. Number 8. Next up we have Sharon The Wanderer, the Tower of Fortune and the Dice of Fate. That's quite the mouthful. Yes, this is a mystery dungeon roguelike game that can be a little bit on the difficult side. The story is relatively simple. You play a Sharon who enters the town, meets an ill little girl, and decides to go up the Tower of Fortune to meet the god at the top to save the little girl. And sure, that's the entire premise. Just go for it. You'll spend most of the game going through the floors that are all randomly generated, like all roguelikes. Basically fighting your way through, collecting better and better equipment, etc, etc. This is actually quite a traditional style of the roguelike, as opposed to a lot of the games nowadays that are roguelite as opposed to roguelike. This is very much a roguelike. Graphically, it's not a powerhouse, but it's got a good old pixel art style that's fine, and if you enjoy that art style, you'll enjoy the art in this game. But yeah, if you're a fan of roguelikes, it's probably worth a look. Number 9. Next we have Mercenary Saga Chronicles. Basically this is 3 strategy RPGs for the price of 1. They've obviously taken inspiration from the likes of Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, so if you ever played those, you know what you're getting into. Like literally you know what you're getting into. It's a very classic turn-based, grid-based style strategy game with a lot of number of jobs. The stories are okay. I actually got quite a lot of enjoyment just playing the game for what it is, as opposed to investing in the story and such. I had an urge to play a strategy game, saw this, gave it a go, and enjoyed it. It's not the most graphically intense game, as you can probably see from the footage, but if you have that strategy itch, it'll scratch it for you. Number 10. Last but not least, we have Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of the Dusk. This is a game set in the fantasy city of Refrain. You're a magical book called the Tractus Demonstrum, but you kind of follow the story of the witch Dronya, who's aiming to explore the labyrinth below the city. The labyrinth itself is covered in this like miasma, poison stuff that's dangerous to all humans. So you as the book get chucked down in there, and you summon these puppet soldiers, which you create yourself as part of the gameplay. And you go out and explore and conquer. The game is a first-person dungeon crawler, but like I said earlier, this one, unlike Maryskelter, is a lot more friendly to new starters to the genre. It's got quite a funny story overall, and it doesn't start too difficult. It kind of ramps it up as it goes, so you get the feel for the gameplay. So yeah, overall, I put this one in number 10 because out of all of the others, I feel this one deserves more attention. I actually quite enjoy this one for what it is. So yeah, if you enjoy that, please give it a go. Thank you to listening to my first top 10. I hope you've enjoyed that and given you some ideas of new games to play. If you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and drop in the comments a game that you think is a hidden gem. We'll see you again soon. Bye.